So just to give you some background before I proceed with my presentation, is that before I joined university, I worked in digital marketing, and I was a planner for a big e-commerce company, and I decided to join academia. So I came from a digital background into academia, and I was met with some really interesting concepts. And this is the story of my teaching methods. Okay, so like many of you, I work with millennials every day. I choose to use the word millennials as opposed to Generation Y for no particular reason. But I myself am a millennial, and I realize that the way that we engage and we experience the world around us has changed quite significantly. And I'm sure most of you have been speaking about this and discussing this very apparent trend for the past 2 days. And the thing with our millennials is that they are constantly connected. I would like to refer to them as a multi-screen generation. No longer do these students prefer one screen. It's all about this whole you only live once. And they want to have various screens at once and use a tablet while they're on the laptop and on the phone on the Twitter. So these people are not multitasking, they're hypertasking. And then they come to class. Oh, hang on, before this. So this photo was taken at the Vatican not too long ago, so in 2005. You can see the way we experienced the world was to listen and to engage with the person who was speaking, which in this case was the Pope. So in 2013, at the Vatican, while the Pope was speaking, this photo was taken. And the proof is in the pudding, you know. And the thing is that now our students don't want to listen anymore. They want to listen, filter, republish, and experience everything while it's happening. And then, while republishing, they kind of become nostalgic about it. Oh, it just happened. Oh, but while it's happening. And now we need to keep these students engaged in the lecture hall. Okay. By using a single communication stream. And even in our daily lives, we hardly use single communication streams. Consider WhatsApp. So when you speak on WhatsApp, you don't type long-winded messages. It's hello, hello, how are you? Good. Can you come to my party? Yes, no. It's a constant toing and froing of messaging. And now our students walk into our lecture halls and it's a 1 hour long single communication stream. And this causes disengaged students. Since the 1400th century, or it was the first university in Bologna, in Italy. So single communication stream, you can see some disengaged students, students without textbooks, students chatting to each other. And today, this is still happening. And I don't know about you, but when I lecture and I see this, I feel like I'm a bad lecturer. Why are they not listening? Why are they not engaging? And you start spiraling, but we need to keep in our minds that these students are extremely hyper-engaged online. Okay. So this is what they're doing. They look like this, but actually this is happening. And I know many lecturers prefer not to use mobile phones in the classes, and I know it is a big distraction, but I choose to not fight the cell phone, but rather embrace the cell phone. And as we've been speaking also, media or digital media can't take over the role of lecturing. It aids, it adds to the lecturing experience. It brings a whole different dimension into the physical sphere of lecturing. Okay? And so I coined this term the digital quotient. Like your intelligence quotient, students need to develop a digital one. They need to learn how to publish online, how to be professional online, how to be professional on Twitter, how to be professional on blogging. Because on Facebook, it's all social, it's all engaging with friends, posting pictures of yourself drinking out on a Friday night. But when you start applying for jobs, your employer will Google you. And they need to know how to present themselves professionally online. So by using technology in the class, you can bring this into your lecture and help them and teach them how to use it in a professional manner. And this also ties into the Stellenbosch University's digital graduate attributes and the vision for 2016 to be a technologically advanced university. And especially in marketing, but I know many other fields, we have highly tech-orientated environments. And now in classes, we let our students write tests on paper. And I don't know about you, but when I was working, I've never written a report with pen and paper, ever. And I don't think I've ever written anything on pen and paper for more than 3 pages since I was a student. So we need to prepare our students, and this is why the job market is flooded with students who are forced to do internships for free to learn the skills of the trade, when we can actually do this in our own lectures. I did a search of the South African job market in terms of marketing jobs. And it turns out that more than half of the jobs available in South Africa in marketing contains a digital element, be it social media or digital marketing or blogging or some kind of online activity. Currently, a marketing curriculum at Stellenbosch doesn't include digital marketing at all. Not in undergrad, not in postgrad. So there's a big gap between what the university offers, or even universities around the world offers, and what the market requires. So speaking about social media and lecturing, most people would say, what about Facebook? Because most of our students are on Facebook and they're highly active. I choose not to use Facebook for various reasons. I feel students have their private space. They want to be able to post photos of their weekends and partying and going out and the boys they met or the girls they met and then being on the beach in the bikinis. And I don't want to interfere in that space. I would like to keep a professional space and a social space. Also, only recently Facebook has become searchable with integrating hashtags into the newsfeed. But still, because it's a personal space for students, I choose not to enter into Facebook. I use Twitter extensively in my classes. And the reason is that Twitter is now the most widely used educational technology in the world. And I know if I say Twitter, many of you think, oh my goodness, and this probably comes to mind. People posting their lives. My lunch looks so divine, #yum. Or probably something like, I'm stuck in traffic on a Friday and posting a photo out of the car window of the traffic. And this is what I'm aiming to change of the students. I want to develop the digital quotient. I want to be able to get them to have professional profiles. So when their employer Googles them, they come into the Twitter feed and see industry-related information and them engaging with people online. They would never have been able to engage with them. Okay, so like I said, Twitter is now the most widely used educational technology, more than Facebook, more than Google+. Purely because of the hashtag. Twitter is highly searchable. It's searchable for anyone, even if you are not on Twitter. It's searchable across people, even if you follow them, if you don't follow them. If they follow you or don't follow you, you can see what people write. Okay, so Twitter is public, it's across the world, and I like to refer to it as my online CV for employers. So now the problem with, especially marketing, is that the textbook theory is rather boring. I'm sure this is the case in many subjects. But online, I often tell my students, like, if you do class, now we're going to speak about segmentation. We're speaking about positioning yourself in the market. And theory, it gets repetitive, But once you go online, you search for positioning or segmentation, you see there's a conversation about the topic happening right now, at this very moment, around the world. And all of a sudden, the students realize, oh my goodness, what we're doing here, even though it's kind of boring, it's very much relevant, and my future employer is actually speaking about it right now. So I better learn what this is about. So some of the tweets that I've done in my class, I have the hashtag for my course called #marketing214. And I regularly tweet interesting things about the lecture we had. So here in the bottom tweet, you can see I say something about, should Starbucks set up shop in Italy? A case on the competitive forces using the 5 forces model by Porter. hashtag marketing214, and then a link that takes them to the case study we did in class. So even for those students who were not in class, they can now go find the link and do the case study. I don't want to disqualify students for not coming to class. Maybe something has happened, or you never know what was happening in students' lives, especially in our demographic. And then my students love to reply to these tweets, and they love being online. Especially, I put the Twitter feeds on the board in class. I plug in my tablet, and then they see the names go on, and they see other people in the world tweeting about segmentation or competitive forces, and it really, really excites them. So here you can see the students saying, digital marketing is taking the marketing field by storm. Check out these infographics. And she had 4 favorites, and none of those people are in my class. They're all industry people. The student below was favorited by Map Media, a world-renowned media company. Okay, so all of a sudden, this student in my class, feeling rather insignificant, is now engaging with big companies around the world. Here, the student tweeted about a campaign that happened in South Africa. She was retweeted and favorited by someone around the world. And they feel relevant, and this really motivates them intrinsically to get involved in the subject and to do their best. These 3 students had to do a mood board for our advertising course. The hashtag there was marketing244. And the mood board they did was on Woolies. Excuse the bra hanging from the mood board. So they tweeted at Woolies and say, hey, Woolies, look what we did. And literally seconds after that, Woolies replied and said, that's fantastic, some great young talent at marketing244. You know, I'm trying to encourage my students to go get internships during the holidays. And once they start engaging with companies online, it's already one step towards getting an internship or getting towards your dream job, because you're engaging with your future company. Oh, so the top tweet, I often use infographics to make the theory more exciting and visually stimulating for students. So the top tweet is just showing that how I made an infographic and I tweeted it at my students, and they immediately retweeted it to some of their friends. And just a tweet below was of a student last week who said, mobile lecturing is the future. Great topic and interesting way to use technology. They used the mobile phones to write a test in class. I forced the students to go online with the technology that the university developed, and they loved it. And there's proof. So, as I was saying also earlier, that digital only aids lecturing. In my postgraduate courses, I choose to use the Harvard case study method. I only discuss case studies, and the class is like a boardroom, so we don't use digital media. What I did do is I did tweet at the author of my case study, and the author of the company, or the owner of the company who the case study was about. So in this case, it was 5 Holes of Food, which is an ice hockey company in Canada, and they tweeted back at the class and saying, hey guys, how did the case study go? And the students loved this, and they replied on different tweets to the company and started engaging and discussing ideas and sharing thoughts. Not just in education, just to prove my point, even the stock markets are realizing the power of Twitter. So here an investor tweeted that he is going to buy Apple shares. Okay. Immediately after his tweet, the Apple shares increased with 5%. So you can see even the stock market realizes the importance and the power of social media. So these are my hashtags. I use hashtag marketing214 and hashtag marketing244. If you're interested, please go check them out on Twitter and tweet at my students. They would love it. Then the second case I really want to discuss with you is our marketing244 blog. So this is the advertising module. And the reason for developing this blog was my students struggled to write. They struggled to write academically, but they write really well if they can write casually. But I realized that in industry, and coming from industry, you hardly ever write academically. You have to write professionally. So with this project, I forced my students to write blog posts and about companies, and they had to engage with companies to get information from Twitter or by emailing them and blogging about these companies. And the students were extremely excited. And on my way to work this morning, or that morning, I got a call from a colleague saying, do you know what's going on? Our entire hall and on our floor is blocked with students. I'm like, yeah, I know what's going on. They're excited to blog because they had to come put the companies down that they will be blogging about. And this is how it looked. And this is the blog. It's the Marketing 244 blog. And they formed groups of 3 students per group, and there were about 100 groups in total. And everyone posted their blogs. You can scroll down and read some of the posts. And the reaction to the blog was absolutely staggering. Before the first post even appeared, I already had about 15 followers, people from industry, not parents of my students. Okay, and the blog competition ran for a month in total. So the students had to write a post, and it was a competition to see which post could get the most web traffic. You can use any means to get web traffic. And this really exercised the digital quotient, seeing how do online networks work? How do I get people to go from one network to another and read my post? You can see our traffic was high in September and dropping off in October when the competition ended. Just to brag about some of the stats of the blog, the most views we had per day was 11,000. The total views in the 2-month period was 100,000 views in total. And we had about just over 1,000 comments on our blog. You can see here where the traffic came from. Actually, you have to seek countries who did not visit the blog. Okay, very, very exciting. And this is just a picture of some of the countries who most visited the blog. Obviously, South Africa was at the top. But you can see interesting countries like Republic of Korea, Indonesia, Poland, Finland, Romania, Sweden, UAE. All these people coming to the blog posts that my students wrote. Okay. And the competition was obviously according to which blog got the most views. Our first place blog got 16,000 views. The second one, 13, and the third, 8,000 views. The top 15 positions all had over 1,000 views for their blogs. And this, I just want to show you how the digital quotient was exercised. So the majority of the traffic on the blog came from people, or came from Twitter, where they listed the link to the blog post. But many of the traffic came from Facebook, about 30,000 views in total, and even from websites like Reddit, Twitter, StumbleUpon, Google+, and Pinterest. These students use all these sites to get people to come to the blog, which is fantastic. This is an interesting story. So I was going through my Twitter feed, just reading, and I spotted the Sugarman blog, or the Twitter post, and said something about Marketing 244. It just caught my eye, and I was thinking, what is the chance of the Sugarman blog posting Marketing 244? Clicked on it, there it is. So they found the blog post and reposted it onto their blog, and this post generated about 400 views to our blog. And this, I want to show you, this post itself had 1,080 comments. Our blog in total, 1,090 comments. So they generated about 99% of them. So these 3 students approached Red Bull, asked them for information, and Red Bull said, this is great, they're going to work with them. They gave them tickets to a big music festival, which they advertised on the blog, and to win the tickets, you had to comment. Brilliant, brilliant strategic move to get comments onto the blog. So these are just some of the examples I've used in my classes. And I found this quote by Abraham Lincoln that says, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. Our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. I think this is very, very appropriate for the situation of higher education in South Africa and around the world. So if you have any questions, please tweet at me at Helian Mills. You're welcome, and follow me if you want. You're welcome to email me, helianmills@sun.ac.za. And please join the conversation on Twitter. You'll be very, very pleased. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gillian. We're going to go over to Colin Karate from Flinders University. We met Colin yesterday afternoon for the first time. So welcome back, Colin, with your specific case study. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just move to the PowerPoint, so you should have that now, I hope. This is going to be a very different presentation, not a hashtag in sight. What I thought I'd do is just highlight some of the ways in which we've been using educational technology in our remote health education programs at Flinders University. So it's a little bit more of a helicopter view than Lillian presented just a moment ago. At Flinders University, we have a faculty of medicine, nursing and health sciences, which contains a wide range of health professions in each of those areas, medicine, nursing and allied health and health professional courses. We have one of the largest rural and remote health education programs in Australia, with a very strong focus on equity and Indigenous health. And you can see from this map why we have such a large rural and remote presence. You can see Adelaide down here. This is where Flinders University is based. But we also have a campus up here in Darwin in the Northern Territory. Whoops, we've got one down here too in Warrnambool, but up here in Darwin. And the distance between these two is over 3,000 kilometres. In addition, we have a campus here in Alice Springs and smaller campuses throughout the Northern Territory. So essentially, the Flinders University Health Sciences programs cover this whole central Australian area. To run these sorts of programs, of course, we need very good connectivity into those more remote sites. And we've struggled with getting that over a large number of years. It's only in the last 4 or 5 years that we've had enough connectivity to do some of the things that I'll describe in just a moment. The backbone for this is provided by our Research and Education Network, RNet. You have an equivalent such network in South Africa. This provides a good deal of redundancy with fairly high bandwidth around the country, although the connections between various regions in the central part of the country are much lower bandwidth, and that's been a perpetual struggle. At the end of the day, for some of the things I'm about to describe though, connectivity is key. Yesterday I described our Flinders Learning Online system, our ecosystem for online learning. So at the risk of boring some of you, I'll just describe that in a little more detail here. We have a front end to that, which is our learning management system. Essentially, this is a student-centric educational portal. It's based on Moodle and provides a comprehensive administrative and organisational information for the student, as well as providing learning content and activities. There's lots of flavours of this. It depends quite a bit on the individual topic or course being taken. Here you can see one of my topics. It's a fairly vanilla sort of presentation. That's because I guess I'm a pretty vanilla sort of guy. But here you can see all of the key organisational information required, including content about what the topic's about, some pragmatic things like practical class allocations and some resources and so on. And then week by week, the educational activities and resources are laid out. As I said, there's lots of variations on this theme, and we'll be welcome to share some of those if people are interested. Flinders Learning Online also has a number of applications and interfaces integrated into it to various degrees that allow us to undertake some of the educational technology practices that we require for these very remote educational programs. For example, we have video conferencing in various flavours. Dedicated video conferencing units were all the rage a few years ago. We still run a lot of these, but now we're increasingly focused on web-based systems. We have a Flow Live application which is based on Adobe Connect. A lot of people still use Skype because it's so easy, and who knows, we might even move to Hangouts shortly, given the good experience we're having with Hangouts at the moment. We do a lot of video streaming. We have all of our major lectures video streamed for students, either for relay or review after the lectures actually run. And we video stream all sorts of special events and so on. We have clinical simulation systems available through this sort of interface, and I'll describe some of them a little further on in this presentation. We've been playing with web-based polling, including things like Twitter feed, Poll Everywhere, and so on. These are web-based clicker technologies, if you like, as a way of trying to get students more actively engaged, as we can see is such a valuable thing to do from the previous presentation. We've been doing quite a bit of e-portfolio work, and we get mixed responses there, where the e-portfolio presentations are based on sound organisational and teaching structures. They work quite well, but in other places they get a much more mixed response, and so that's been an interesting learning exercise for us. Built into Flinders Learning Online, we also have back-end systems, and in particular we've got a very rapidly developing learning content management system which allows us to manage our topic content, documents and so on, integrate that with our library and e-resources, and in particular this is valuable from the point of view of managing access and ensuring we don't breach copyright requirements, an increasingly fraught area as we move into the e-learning space. We also use this for management of video. This is still fairly early for us, but we're like everybody, undergoing death by video, and not only pushing it out, but now starting to pull it back in for assessment purposes and so on. This learning content management system is based on Aquila and Kaltura, and as I said, is actively under development. Now, that's the sort of interface that we use to provide our students with the material that they need to help them on their learning across the full range of programs that come out of health sciences. What I want to do is just focus on the medical course, not because it's intrinsically more important than any of the others, but it has been a leader in this area, and in particular because we're doing something a little bit novel here. At Adelaide, at the main campus, we have a graduate entry MD program. It's a 4-year program which enrolls about 180 students per year, and like the rest of the university has a very strong focus on rural and remote placement, rural and remote health, both from a delivery and an educational point of view. And in particular, included in this is a special program we've been running in the Northern Territory up here in Darwin. So this is Adelaide down here and Darwin up here. The Flinders Northern Territory Medical Program was put together in order to encourage students to undertake medicine in this remote part of the country in the hope that they'd actually stay there, because one of the problems we have, I'm sure you have too, is that students or health professionals tend not to migrate to these more remote places. And the idea here is if you train them in those remote places, or indeed if they come from those remote places, they're more likely to stay there. We have placements for the Adelaide-based students in Darwin within this medical program, but we also take local students, 25 to 30 per year, and we have an Indigenous entry stream of around about 16 students as a way of encouraging Indigenous students into these professions. We have a very close working relationship with a university up there called Charles Darwin University, and that particular relationship has opened up for us a significant emerging trend towards partnering with other universities or institutions, and I'll talk a little more about that later. Based around the Northern Territory Medical Program, we've got lots of remote sites based in the community. You can see some of them scattered here. There are many small but intensively managed learning experiences for the students in those communities, and some of them are extremely remote. Up here in Nullarbor, for example, every now and then a crocodile eats its way through the main cable, providing internet connection and telephony into those regions, and those students then make do with until it's repaired. We have a special campus recently built up in up in Darwin. This is the Northern Territory Medical Program building, co-sponsored by Flinders and Charles Darwin University and the Northern Territory Government. It's a fairly spectacular purpose-built building that reflects the environment up there, and is a very popular venue for the students. Now I want to show you some of what might be going on in terms of the relationship between Adelaide and the Northern Territory Medical Program, and I'll just give you a quick warning. Some of these images might be confronting. They're anatomical images. I've kept to the more innocuous ones, but if you're squeamish you might need to look away occasionally. The first thing that we got up and rolling in the Northern Territory Medical Program was the Histology and Pathology practice or training, and that's what you can see in these views here. These are views of the anatomy, histology and pathology teaching and learning area up in Darwin, and you can see it's highly technology geared. What the students are reviewing at the moment is a histology slide, which is being presented by someone from Alice Springs, which is even more remote than Darwin. It just so happened that the expert was in Alice Springs at the time. So the interesting thing to me about this picture is you can see a series of microscopes here that still have the covers over them, and the students are actually doing their histology prac on the computer via a remote link from about 1,500 kilometres away. And the same principle applies to pathology. That's what you can see here. Here's a pathology tutorial going on, being delivered remotely. We do the same thing with anatomy. So the view you have here is our very special anatomy professor Ian Gibbons in the anatomy area in Adelaide. What you can see is he's actually currently demonstrating a cadaver. The field of view that he's imaging is provided by a camera up here and is displayed on a series of screens around which the students are clustered. So we have these pods. There's actually now 5 of them along this wall. In this particular view, you can see these students here are looking at another screen, which I will flick to another view of now. That's this screen here. That's the students we're looking at. This is a different view from the previous one, but shows the same general room. And what you can see over here is a video conference monitor which has material which is being presented, in this case by another one of our staff, associated with a particular practical. And up here in the corner you can see students in the Darwin campus 3,000 kilometres away who are engaging in this particular tutorial. I'll show you another view of that. This is a close-up of a slightly different part of that particular practical. The students in this view were dealing with the ligaments of the pelvic girdle, and here you can see some of the students up in Darwin reviewing that material and interacting with people back in Adelaide, as I said, 3,000 kilometres away. So in this way we can get specialised expertise from Adelaide or anywhere else for that matter and send it up to Darwin in real time. Now this becomes particularly important because we do not have the content experts or the academics, the teaching staff, in these more remote locations. It's simply not possible to get people up there in any cost-effective way. So these types of technologies are allowing us to ensure that training for those students can occur in the remote sites where we hope they will return to work. We also have a very strong clinical or workplace simulation focus. I don't know how it's going for you guys in South Africa, but certainly here in Australia this is becoming a very prominent part of many professions actually, but in particular the health workforce. And this is because there's significant health workforce shortages across the country, and clinical simulation is seen as one way of actually speeding up the throughput of graduates and enhancing their education in a way that makes them more workforce ready. So this has become a major component of the health curriculum at Flinders. In the old days it was done this way. You had mannequins lying on the floor, perhaps an expert explaining something, in this case intubation, as you can see here. But increasingly this has moved to scenarios where we have complete simulation areas that are fitted out with cameras so that you can get views from lots of different angles of what might be going on in this particular case in a routine clinic. The scenario might be that the medical staff are dealing with somebody over here, but the person in the bed just across the corridor is in fact in significant trouble and they haven't noticed that there's a problem. That can all be captured by video and then reviewed later with expert input, and that of course informs the students in terms of how they should be reacting in these sorts of circumstances. Some of these mannequins are very sophisticated now. They can be simulated to do all sorts of adverse events, all sorts of normal events, and that significantly tests the students' knowledge base and their reaction times. It's a slightly complex picture, but I just wanted to illustrate with this that the clinical simulation architecture is actually highly networked. We're using a system called Menti-Learning System, which has a number of local remote servers that gather this information and then beam it along to a central application server. That then can distribute information back out to be reviewed. And the significance of this is that these particular remote servers can be anywhere, as long as they can get onto a network link that gets them into the university network, and essentially that network is across the country via our connections with ARNet. This can allow store and forward opportunities for review and feedback, so that in instances where we have low bandwidth, the clinical simulation experience from some very remote site can be sent overnight when traffic's a bit lower, and the fact that it takes a while to get there doesn't really matter. That can be reviewed and sent back again, and then the student can review that on a student-centric file management system and deal with it through our Flinders Learning Online portal. So does all of this technology work? Yes, it does, but it's not easy. It's no quick fix. There's a lot of resources required to keep all that rolling. Success depends on champions, in particular academic and clinical champions, and perhaps not surprisingly on student champions. So it's a requirement across the board that everybody's actively engaged. It needs technical abilities often on the part of those champions, and that can be a challenge. It also needs very strong technical backup. This technical backup is getting simpler and more straightforward as the technology improves, but we're still a long way off having everyone as well trained and championed as we would like. Student reception is actually a little bit mixed. They love easy access to the content and so on. They like the special experiences that can come from clinical simulation. They like being connected via remote sites for special occasions like lectures, and they like to interact with their fellow students across significant geographical distances. But they always want more hands-on stuff. It's actually quite interesting. They demand it almost, but students still never find it quite enough. And I think the onus is on us to make it much more interactive, perhaps in the ways that were described earlier. Histology and pathology is actually now done the traditional way. We send experts up, we fly in, fly out. And the reason for that has to do with the fact that the champions that drove this in the early days are no longer with us, and our new content experts are not so keen on this. They find it more convenient to do it the old way. The technology is still there, but we don't have the people to actually drive that process into the future. Anatomy is still shared remotely, but we're finding a greater reliance on pre-recorded resources so that we get much more of a blended learning approach, so that when you do have video conferencing around anatomy practicals or special circumstances, then they can be much more accurately positioned. They can be much more meaningful in their use. It's not about the technology. The technology actually works. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. What we're finding increasingly is that it's about the people and the organisation behind it. And so increasingly we're focusing on that part into the future. We're developing the human ecosystem, the relationship between students and staff and the institutions themselves, in order to get that human element right. Because if we get that right, the technology actually becomes an enabler. Well, I think for too long we kind of viewed it as a panacea rather than an enabling activity, and we ignored too much of the human ecosystem behind it. Nevertheless, we continue to work on the technology itself, or the educational underpinnings of it, through development and refinement of flow, our continued development of our learning content management system. I mentioned our experimentation with more active engagement, such as polling. And interestingly, we are finding increasingly that we're doing this within partnerships where we're sharing those resources and concepts. Partnerships a bit like this gathering that we're attending now, but also formal partnerships with a wide range of both academic and commercial companies. So this is very much a focus for us. Managing those partnerships can be quite tricky. Okay, that's it from me. So thank you for your patience. And I've probably gone over time again, but there you are.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you. We're now going to switch over to Richard Gorey from the University of Guelph to do his 15-minute presentation. And then after that, we'll take some questions. So please, Colin, if you can just stay on for the rest of the session, if there are any specific questions.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Richard.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly, thank you. Good.
Okay. And I just have to, sorry, I'll just want to make sure I can see where the screen share button is. Hi, I'm Richard Gorey. I'm with the University of Guelph. You heard from a couple of my colleagues yesterday, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about, well, I think the title of the session here is some best practice examples of pedagogical applications of ICT. I will certainly get to those focusing on the learning management system. However, first of all, I did want to thank you, Luzanne, for setting this up. She was extremely helpful. I apologize for my appearance yesterday and today. I broke my ankle on the weekend, and I've been so stranded on my sick bed, although here I am at my kitchen table today. Also, thanks to the other conference organizers, my colleagues. It's very exciting to be here. And to all of you in attendance as well. I've been very impressed with what I've seen and heard, although I hope you'll understand due to the time difference, I certainly haven't been as able to follow as much as I would have liked to. And a final shout out to those of you who have been tweeting all along. It's much appreciated and certainly is an excellent way of keeping in touch with what's going on. I mentioned that because in case there are some sort of disconnections with some of the material that's been already raised in this wonderful conference. Okay, I'm going to just share with you my presentation. Hold on one second. Sorry about this. I have a few windows open here. Oh, it was all so well organized before. Here we go. Oh, just 1 second, please. All right. So that the there we go. Okay, and let me reduce that a little bit. Are you seeing that in a fashion that can be is legible? I hope so. Just get rid of this.
Fine, it's fine. Richard.
Okay. So anyway, what I want to talk about is to discuss learning management systems. We're really all, this is quite a varied panel. I'm speaking as an administrator today, and although I have done some teaching in the past, but maybe I can explain a little bit to you where I'm coming from. I'm an associate director with, first of all, here I'm going to just go through my slides. There's the hockey game that I had to sit out of on the sideline with a broken ankle. This is a neighbor's pond. We're really lucky to have that, because it certainly makes a very long, cold winter go a lot easier. Okay, so this is where I work. I work in the building on the left, that lovely ivy-colored building. That's Day Hall at the University of Guelph. Associate Director of Open Learning and Educational Support. My purview is educational technology, the administration, development, and support. It, of course, includes administration of ICT for campus technology, both in class and online, as well as distance ed and continuing ed. Like many in the technology and educational development fields, I come from a discipline outside of educational development. I have a PhD in history, 18th century British history. I studied theatre riots in London during the 18th century, a wonderful topic. But over the years, I've found myself more and more engaged in educational technology. And this is my background, bringing me to where I am, to that lovely ivy covered building there. So what I want to do today, here's a little explanation of open learning and educational support, just so you understand where I'm coming from. For us, open learning really is online learning. For the most part, it is asynchronous. It includes distance education as well as continuing education. And then we are also at Open Learning Educational Support. We are involved as well with educational development, curriculum development, a whole range of activities there that are going on. And then we also have our educational technology wing, which is primarily where I locate. But you'll see how all the circles do intersect. And that's a really important part of kind of the context of where I'm coming from. We really are a unit that shares both spaces as well as opportunities to learn from each other. And I think that's a really critical part of what we do. Our mandates and roles are to extend the research of the university as well as the teaching expertise. We provide degree credit opportunities to folks who aren't enrolled in a degree program. We call those open learners. These are people who really want to take university courses for the sake of it, which is, I think, a wonderful thing. And then we also, of course, work with faculty to enable their professional development, as well as professional development outside of the institution as well through continuing education. And then we do a lot of other things as well, but those are the three that I really want to focus on because they do really provide the context for where I'm coming from. Okay, what I want to do is to really discuss how the learning management system can really impact and make for some transformational change. And to do that, I want to focus on some best practices. Now, I've heard a number of these already addressed in different ways, so forgive me for repeating some things, but I really, again, this is from the point of view of an administrator, of someone who's trying to engender an atmosphere of support, of research, of application as well, and so that's what I'm going to try and get through it, and then discuss a few examples from the University of Guelph. I've chosen to focus on learning management system. I completely understand that is not the only approach to technology, and certainly, as I say, I've appreciated the Twitter stream. I have Twitter open all the time. I do certainly multiple window. I certainly do recognize that there are a lot of other ways of facilitating learning besides the learning management system. But that's what I wanted to focus on today. Our learning management system, we use Desire to Learn, although we have branded it for some time now as CourseLink. We did that when we were a WebCT shop, and one of the reasons we did it was because even when we were happy with WebCT, we realized that we didn't want to just become another campus of the University of WebCT, so we really wanted to have our own identity. Although we have a wonderful relationship with Desire to Learn. In fact, they are just around the corner from us. We were their first customer, and we enjoy a very close working relationship. We have about 20,000 students at Guelph. Pretty much all our students, undergraduates and graduates, are enrolled in the system. We have about 1,000 instructors. About 80% of our courses, the use is not mandatory, and although that could change in the future. Let's take away the word mandatory. There could be some encouragement from the upper levels of the administration to really bring all courses online. One of the reasons is because we really are integrating with other systems on campus, and so it would make sense for everyone to have a course. And we have about 3,500 courses going in a year. We work on the semester system, but our fall and winter semesters are our two major semesters, and then with the summer semester. Although for our distance education, the summer semester is one of our very busy times. So not a lot of other things. One of the things that about the learning management system I think we should all kind of realize is that we don't often use all of the tools and use it to our advantage. And I certainly do appreciate the other tools that are available outside of it, but we've really been trying at Guelph to really focus in on some of the tools, some of that intentionally from a faculty standpoint, so we kind of really know what's on the ground and useful, but also from as a university strategic direction, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So I'm going to say number one is really thing that we need to do with learning management system is to make it learner-centered. You can see there, that's the first line of the University of Guelph's mission statement. We are a research-intensive, learner-centered university, and this really means we are looking at learning from the students' viewpoint, and we've adapted a number of practices to facilitate that. It really, I think here in Canada, we are certainly not on the leading edge of becoming learner-centered, but neither are we behind in that regard. And I think as you will likely know what an impact this has on you as for the instructors out there and faculty members out there, that it really does, it's a wonderful thing. The institutions seem to realize the importance of teaching and learning and of what the student is going to get from their education. Some of this is being prompted from outside the institution. Here in Canada, we are really being held under the microscope, or a magnifying glass, if you will, with the public, and you can't go a day without having some major announcement or columnist in the media examining and questioning what we're doing with university educations. So it's really changing the approach to the way we teach and making for a more concerted, really studied way of teaching. I think the other element, of course, that comes with this is that with technology, we really are expanding out. That it is no longer a single professor in the classroom closing the doors and then it just being their realm. We really are. There's a lot more people engaged and offering support and advice, and this is really part of making an institution learner-centered. With our approach, we certainly advise and suggest that the pedagogy leads the technology. That is sometimes difficult because, of course, the technology offers us so many opportunities. We use the technology in our day-to-day lives or in our professional lives. And so as we discover new ways of working online, discover new tools, discover new approaches, we really sometimes we will try to fill that usage in our classrooms, or try to adapt that usage in our classrooms. So, but we constantly remind our faculty that really, let's look at the learning outcomes. What's the purpose of whatever it is that you are teaching? What's the learning going on? How are we going to provide the content that supports that? And then how are we going to align the assessments with that? And then how can technology be integrated into that process? For us, with Open Ed, we really we try and make sure that all our people, including obviously our educational developers, are this is a message that they is front of mind with them. But with our others, with our technologists, we also do really stress that they understand this, and obviously they are there as technical support and have to know the technology and be able to offer that help, but want them to be aware of what the prime purpose is, and that is learning on the part of students. To this end, we try to engage as much as we can on the technology side with the educational development side, and one way we do that is we have an annual course redesign institute that instructors will apply for. We take anywhere from 12 to 20 courses, and then we have a week-long program, and we go through certainly learning outcomes, aligning assessments, all of those issues. But we have people from our technology unit actively engaged in those, so that they are both there to learn, but then also to share and be right there to help provide perhaps a technological solution, or to some of the issues that are coming up in these course redesigns. And as you see here, this is we have a website as well that is a very active website that aligns with the activities that go on during that week, and then of course can be something that both participants and others can go to afterwards. Obviously all of the materials are there, but there also is some social media is also encouraged, as well as opportunities for participants to post their own materials.
Richard, just one comment. About 2-3
yes.
minutes, perhaps, just to wrap up. Thanks.
Okay, I'll just then. Okay, thank you. Let me finish then, and I'll just quickly go through what. So, humanizing the system. This really, I could, and I have done presentations on this, the human side of support. But we have to remember who's on the other side of this. Not only, and with technology support, we have not only are we supporting the learning that goes on, so the pedagogy, but we're also very much involved in the andragogy, because we're helping faculty. And we could debate this as to if there's a different approach or not, but certainly it's to remember that faculty are learners too in this process. Evidence-based practice, we really are quite aware of the great things to be gained with knowledge mobilization. A colleague, Helen, spoke about that yesterday, and so we want that to also make its way into the teaching as well. So we work very closely with faculty to help them to include their research into their teaching. This is this peer evaluation, assessment, and review came from a faculty member who was in his class. One of his assignments, he had students really going through the process of submitting a scholarly article with blind peer review. We developed some technology that enabled him to do that, and it's really allowed us to use the that he has written on this, and so it's really allowed him to use his research and his research engagement approach and help to support that. The connecting with the university's goals and strategic directions. Our University of Guelph has for a long time had learning objectives. Of course, now they've turned to learning outcomes, I think a better, slight change in semantics, but it certainly does suggest that what people are very concerned in, what's really, what students are going to learn. And we have 5 of those. They were mandated through Senate. And certainly what we now are working with is working through those learning outcomes through a variety. So from the degree level expectations, which come from outside the university at a provincial level, to the university, through the programs, courses, and then aligning the various assignments with those back upwards. This is the image of the Russian nesting dolls, if you will, and how the flow can go back and forth between learning outcomes. This is our structure. This has meant that we've really had to set up a different structure in our learning management system. Now, we used to be based on departments. Now we also have to have a side-by-side arrangement looking at learning outcomes, program-level outcomes, looking at programs, so that we can associate program outcomes with different courses. And as you know, a course may be involved in 2 or 3 different programs. And then finally, I do have to put in a plug for one of our faculty and repeat that certainly it's important to embrace other technologies, and I've just included here a very active course. This is Professor Owen Roberts, who has a course in agricultural communications. He doesn't use the learning management system. He uses a blog, and it makes a lot of sense. He has his students set up their own blogs and as well participate in the course and submit and engage in a really constructed manner, and it makes a lot of sense. This is an upper year course in communications, so might as well do it outside of the learning management system, where students are likely to perhaps do that in their professional lives. I do apologize for rushing things a little bit at the end, but there is my contact information, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you from this distance. I'm sure the picture outside your windows is a lot different than mine, although the sun is shining on here in Ontario, Canada. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard, for your contribution. And we were just saying, it feels like you in the room with us, both you and Colin. It's amazing how the technology brings you close and actually into the room this afternoon. There's a few minutes left over, so I'm going to open the room for 1 or 2 questions. If there's burning questions for Leon, Richard, or to Colin, any questions or comments? Johan at the back.
Johan Rover from Biochemistry. I've got a question for Leon. I really liked your presentation. I think part of this social media thing is what I call the Twitterization of the society, that if you can't say your message in 160 characters, you're out. Now, in a sense, I guess you're lucky because your field is media marketing, and that lends itself to this kind of stuff. I'm from the hard sciences, and sometimes you just can't get your message across 160 characters. So I was wondering whether you would have any pointers as to, I mean, sometimes you have to actually engage with the subject matter, especially in the sciences, for longer than also 1 or 2 minutes. Really, it's difficult stuff. But I see that it's very useful to maybe to meet the students with the stuff they're doing everywhere. So I was wondering whether you have any pointers in that context.
Hi, thank you for the question. So a while ago, I was chatting to a statistics professor, and he approached me with the same question, saying, Ilian, how am I going to do this with my statistics students? It's hardcore theory. And one of the first things I did was I was Googling, searching on Twitter for some of the words or theories that they use in class. And surprisingly, there are some really nice blogs and opinions of people writing about these theories and applying those theories to different contexts. And this provides a different view on the theory. I'm not sure if this will be able to work in your class, maybe not. If not, I know a lot of recruiters, especially for student recruiters getting internships or maybe the first jobs, are posting jobs online. And even just for this, it's worthwhile for a student to be on Twitter, be active, and just engaging with companies they might be working with. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Ilian. Last question, yes.
Firstly, we heard we should be evidence-based. Where is the evidence that we can actually hyper-screen? That's my first question. The second question is, it feels to me that everything is orientated towards the extrovert character. Where are the introverts? Are they left behind or are they with us?
Thank you for the question. Okay, so evidence in hypertasking. I recently read a study that proved you cannot eat multiples. So that's the truth. But students do hypertask, and they enjoy having multiple screens in front. And various marketing strategies, communication strategies, are utilizing this. So they would have a TV ad or TV show with hashtags. They encourage TV viewers to engage on Twitter while watching a TV series. So whether it works or not, the trend is here. So I need to teach my students to be able to find the way they will be entering marketing very, very soon. Then on the second question, the introvert question, I think social media is a great platform for introverts. They can really voice themselves and take a stand out physically. So they can engage in this conference by tweeting and sitting in the back of the room and be so very active and not having to stand here and being in front of lots of people and on a microphone. So Twitter and especially Google Plus maybe also facilitates introverts. Do you agree? Yes.
Bertie, you wanted to add?
No, actually, Elian answered the question beautifully. But I think there's an underlying issue there which is important. That it's horses for courses. An introverted person need not be an insipid person. There is nowhere in any of the job markets in the world today an opportunity for an insipid person. If you're insipid, you're going to suffer and you've got to take your pain. But being an introvert doesn't mean necessarily insipid. So introverted people will come across very powerfully in one-to-one conversations, in small colloquia. But quite clearly, people who can perform as extroverts, and remember that any drama student will tell you that you can be an introvert and perform extrovertedly on stage. Clearly, the plenary sessions are for people who can perform extrovertedly. And the problem with our education system is that we ask people who were not suited for plenary performances to perform plenary, and that is part of the intense boredom that hangs over the education process. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close off this session and say thank you again to Elian, to Colin, and to Richard. Richard, I hope you get well soon. Your ankle heals quickly. And it was really interesting because what Bertie also said, horses for courses, and I think we saw it in this panel, a very varied panel, from Twitter to learning management system to remote rural teaching. And again, there's not just one answer. It depends on your context and your specific issues that you address, and that's the tools that you use. So again, many thanks, Colin and Richard, to brave the time zone changes and everything. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lian.
Thank you.
Richard, and we will keep your and Colin's bottles of wine that I'm handing out when you come and visit Stellenbosch University. Then we'll enjoy it together. So yes, virtually accept our thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then I'm going to take this opportunity now to just go straight into the closing of the conference. It's been a real pleasure to spend these 2 days with all of you, and it's up to me, and I'll hand over to Almi probably as well, to extend a huge vote of thanks to all of the participants, virtual participants, physical participants during these 2 days. Would like to extend a word of thanks to all our presenters, Oscar, Cecilia that's still here, Bertie. I'm worried that I'm going to forget somebody in the room now, Bjorn, Mika. So all the presenters, thank you so much for all your contributions. I know what it takes to prepare and actually to do a presentation. And then to the team that put all of this together, I would like you to all stand up again. And I'm so worried I'm going to forget somebody. Johan Kistner in the back, Miranda van Rooyen next to him, Justin Alberts at the back as well, Travis, Henny's already standing. He's been standing a lot these past 2 days behind the camera. Lizanne for contacting all the presenters, please stand up. JP Bosman, both two of my colleagues. Who am I forgetting now on this side of the room? Oh yes, the sound people, thank you very much for your contributions. The people that are not here currently are Lisa Tron from the Marketing Communication, Marty van der Linde, who organized the amazing dinner we had last night, the venue, the programs, everything connected to that. Joe, that's left, that put up the wireless for us. Zainab and Patsy, that's in my team, that did quite a lot of work. Vildre, that you saw at registration, she was amazing. I would just send an email, and we had a Dropbox account for all the documents, and suddenly I would see a document being changed and updated. So yes, thanks so much for Vildre. I don't think she's in the room anymore, but thank you very much. Then also to Monique Zahl, who's not here, and she couldn't be here the whole day, from the Rector's office. In her absence, I would like to thank her for her leadership, and she's in the Rector's office. This was his conference, so it's very important that she provided the leadership. To my fellow co-conspirator and program director, Helmi Dreyer, thank you so much for all the help and support. We've really had a roller coaster ride throughout all of this. So yes, the first day we concentrated on technology, and we looked at systems and application of technology. And for me, as Senior Director, Learning and Teaching Enhancement at Stellenbosch University, it was really encouraging that we moved the conversation today to, it's about the people and the organization. And I think it's Richard or Colin that spoke about the human ecosystem. So it's about us. Yes, technology is the enabler, but at the end of the day, it's about us. I started on Tuesday morning by quoting the African proverb, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk together. And I want to end off with that, because I think Oscar, Cecilia, special word of thanks to you and the project as well. And I think if we want to walk far, we've got to walk together, and this is the start of the journey. Thank you so much.
I think you would agree that it would only be appropriate if I thank Annette by means.
Knowing Helmi, I think he put that bottle of wine there on purpose. So yes, his exchange of wine. So many thanks. Travel safely. And please, we will forward you the link again to the website with the YouTube. So we'll do that within the next few days or so. And let's continue the conversation as well. Thank you very much for your participation.